Don't get cocky, you old hag.
With those words, my son-in-law, Michael, shoved me aside.
Ouch!
The moment I fell to the floor, pain shot through my leg. As I lay there unable to stand, Michael looked down at me.
What are you thinking, acting all high and mighty, when you can hardly even walk? Do you realize who's providing you with this comfortable life in such a big house? You're penniless and useless since your husband passed away. And now you have the audacity to intrude into my family's life. Remember, you are staying at our house now. Know your place. Do not defy me, or I will send you off to a care facility right away.
Leaving those words behind, my son-in-law Michael returned to his room. Have I ruined my daughter's family? I would have been better off alone. I should not have come here. My name is Nancy. I lost my husband 2 years ago and have been living alone in this house filled with memories of him. I've always had a bad leg and depended on my husband's help for my day-to-day activities. Whenever I had pain or numbness in my leg, my husband was always there to support me. I admired my kind and considerate husband. However, an unexpected accident took his life, leaving me all alone. The unexpected event left me deeply depressed, and I found myself crying all day, every day. But it was my only daughter, Rachel, who saved me.
Mom, if you keep crying, it will make Dad sad in heaven. He will always watch over us and protect us.
Rachel.
Let's be strong together, Mom. I will support you from now on. So please don't cry anymore. Smile.
Rachel has always been a strong and dependable daughter who encourages me positively at all times. She must have inherited her father's strength.
Thank you, Rachel. You're right, I can't keep wallowing in sorrow. It would worry your dad too much. That's right, Mom. If you keep crying, Dad might worry so much that he can't even find his way to heaven.
We shared a small laugh and decided to move forward together. 5 years have passed since my husband passed away. Rachel, who was in high school at that time, has become a respected working professional and got married 2 years ago. After their marriage, the couple built their own house and Rachel moved out of our family home, which is about an hour's drive away. Back then, she had repeatedly persuaded me to live with them, but I firmly refused. It was because I didn't want to interfere with the newlyweds, and also because I didn't want to leave this house where I had spent so many years with my husband.
Although I'm touched by the offer, I intend to continue living here with your father's memories. But what if something happens, Mom? There won't be anyone to help you. Dad may be watching over you, but he can't help you anymore. I understand, Rachel. But it's okay. You should live your own life with your husband, not worrying about taking care of me. Focus on your new family.
Although Rachel looked a bit worried, she reluctantly agreed when I insisted. In truth, living alone had its difficulties, but I didn't want to burden my daughter, so I managed to get by. The season had turned to winter. When it got cold, my legs would start to give me trouble. The cold exacerbates the pain and numbness, so I tried to keep as warm as possible. But compared to the warmer seasons, it was much harder to go about my daily life. The winter was particularly harsh that year, so I decided to ask the hospital to increase my medication. Of course, I didn't say a word about this to my daughter and her husband. I didn't want to cause them unnecessary worry or be a burden to them. But my condition was deteriorating. There were times when even standing was difficult, let alone walking. I managed to cope with the pain and go on with my life, but eventually, my daughter Rachel noticed something was wrong. It happened on Christmas Eve when Rachel came to bring me presents. The doorbell rang, and as I tried to get up to welcome her, I couldn't stand. Rachel must have been worried when I didn't answer the door after several rings, so she unlocked the door and walked in.
Mom, are you okay?
Sorry, I'm just not feeling too well today. I tried to put on a brave face and smile, but Rachel saw through me.
Mom, you don't have to push yourself. Please, come stay with us. I can't bear to see you suffer like this.
It's okay. I just couldn't move for a moment, but I'll be fine once I take my medicine. No matter how stubborn I was, Rachel insisted.
I knew something was wrong the moment I walked in. You, who always keeps everything neat and tidy, have left things lying around, which is unlike you. You're so unwell that even tidying up must be a struggle, right? Also, your medication has increased. It's on the table, but there's a lot more than last time.
Rachel was right about everything, and I was left speechless.
Please, even if it's only until you're feeling better, come stay with us. When you're back on your feet, you can return to this house. Dad would want the same."
With that, Rachel embraced me. I hadn't realized how strong my daughter had become. Rachel was no longer the child I thought her to be. She had become a responsible adult. "Rachel, I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry."
We're family. Even though I've moved out after getting married, you and Dad are still my precious family.
Her warm words touched my heart. I nearly cried, but I held back my tears and smiled, saying thank you. I agreed to live with them for a while. I packed up some of my things and Rachel drove me to her and her husband's house. Their house was newly built and very beautiful since it was still quite new. The design of the house, with fewer stairs and steps, made me feel as if it was built with my comfort in mind.
"Mom, this is your room."
Rachel led me to a corner room on the first floor. The room was filled with warm sunlight, and there was a photo of my husband, me, and Rachel. I'm sure this room was prepared by Rachel for me.
"The kitchen is this side, and the bathroom is over there. If you need anything, just let me know." "Thank you, Rachel." "Where's Michael?"
Since we arrived, Rachel had been showing me around, but her husband Michael was nowhere to be seen. "He should be in his room. Don't worry about it, Mom."
"But I should say hello. After all, I'm going to be a burden on him."
Rachel's face clouded over a bit.
"The truth is, Michael has hardly been leaving his room. I haven't seen him for quite some time now, but he knows about you moving in, so don't worry." "What do you mean he doesn't come out of his room?"
Cutting off my question, Rachel exclaimed, "I'm going to make dinner. It's Christmas Eve today, so I'm going to give it my all," and off she went to the kitchen. This was the first time she had ever said something like that. After all, I hadn't met her husband, Michael, since the day they came to tell me about their marriage. There was no formal meeting with Michael's family, and no wedding ceremony. According to Rachel, Michael's parents are too busy for a formal meeting. We decided together that we didn't need a wedding. As for me, I would have liked to meet his parents if possible, and even a modest wedding ceremony would have been nice. But whenever I brought it up, she would brush me off, saying, maybe when things settle down. So I had stopped bringing up the topic. That night, Rachel served up a homemade meal. Roast chicken, salads, pizzas, and other extravagant dishes that I wouldn't normally make myself filled the table. Michael was not there, as expected, but I did not mention it and took a seat.
"This looks delicious. When did you become such a good cook?" "I've been studying a lot. Just taste it."
She deftly served the dishes onto my plate, and I took a bite of salad with Rachel's homemade dressing.
"It's delicious. Really? I'm so glad. Eat up."
She seemed so pleased that she kept piling food on my plate. We ate our fill and talked late into the night. It had been a while since I had a meal and a chat like this with Rachel, and it was really enjoyable.
"Oh, it's already 10 p.m. I have work tomorrow, so I'm going to clean up quickly. You rest, Mom." "We've been talking for a long time. Can I help clean up?" "No, it's fine, I'll finish quickly. Good night, Mom."
I had been bustling around since morning and was quite tired, so I decided to take advantage of Rachel's kindness and rest in my room. I'm concerned about Michael, but it's not my place to interfere. I decided not to make any unnecessary remarks and went to sleep.
"Have a nice Christmas."
Around 8 a.m., Rachel left for work. There was a note in the kitchen, "Eat this if you want," alongside a homemade meal. Had she gotten up early to prepare this? I felt both grateful and guilty. I need to get my leg in better shape so I can return home as soon as possible. I was in my room, working on exercises and rehabilitation for my leg. I heard footsteps from the direction of the stairs. The footsteps were heading towards the kitchen. It was Michael. I hurried to the kitchen.
Good morning, mother-in-law."
Michael, looking rather disheveled, greeted me in a relaxed tone. His hair was a mess, his beard grown out. He looked like a completely different person from when I had met him 2 years ago.
"Hello. As you may have heard from Rachel, I'm going to be living here for a while until my leg gets better. I know it's a lot of trouble, but I hope we can get along."
Unable to hide my bewilderment, I smiled. "How long is for a while?"
"Huh?"
The question came out of nowhere.
"So, how long is a while? Rachel seems worried about you, but I'm not." I'm planning to go home as soon as possible.
When Michael came to ask for Rachel's hand in marriage, he was in a neat suit, a clean-cut guy. He spoke confidently, promising, "I will definitely make your daughter happy." I didn't think he was lying, and I trusted him when I said, "Please take care of my daughter." But he was completely different from then. "That's good. That's helpful," he responded. "I'm sorry. I should have discussed it with you properly. I apologized." Rachel said, "It's okay," but apparently, he wasn't pleased. I deeply regretted coming here.
Oh, by the way, could you do this for me, mother-in-law?
Michael handed me a note. It had a handwritten list, 5 snacks, 4 bottles of juice, magazines, and so on.
What is this? It's a shopping list for this morning. The closest supermarket is open from 8 in the morning, so it should be open now.
He was fiddling with his phone without even glancing at me. He then continued.
Rachel is out working every day, so could you please help out in her stead, mother-in-law? You're not planning on just freeloading here, are you?
He said with a grin, "Just leave the stuff you buy somewhere around here," and then he went upstairs. I never expected him to be this kind of person. I was shocked and worried about Rachel. Has she been tolerating this all this time? Since she's such a kind girl, she might not have wanted to burden me with the details. It was another cold day outside. The forecast had said it might snow, so we could have a white Christmas. I dressed as warmly as possible and headed outside with the note. Rachel would go to work almost every day, and often she came back late. The only time she could rest properly was on Sundays, when she would do housework and go shopping. Michael was always cooped up in his room, leaving Rachel to take care of the house. However, on days when Rachel wasn't there, I was sent out to do the shopping and other errands by Michael. The biting cold made my legs hurt and it was hard to walk. I couldn't tell Rachel. She had enough on her plate, and I didn't want to add to her worries. This lifestyle continued for about a month. One day, I returned from my usual shopping trip to find an unfamiliar pair of women's heels at the front door. I had a bad feeling. I left my shopping bags where they were and struggled up the stairs, holding onto the handrail. I finally made it to Michael's room and cautiously approached the door. Inside, there were 2 people. I heard Michael's voice, and a woman's voice I'd never heard before. They were talking with great joy, and there were moments when the woman laughed loudly. This was an shocking truth. I can't believe it. My son-in-law is having an affair, and even bringing her into our home while my daughter is out working. It's absolutely unforgivable. I must never forgive this man. Something taut within me snapped. Before I knew it, I had thrown open the door to Michael's room, my voice raised.
What are you 2 doing?
Sure enough, there were 2 people in the room. An unknown woman looked at me with a dumbfounded expression. Michael clicked his tongue, stood up, and walked toward me.
Michael, what's going on? Are you doing this all the time? Shut up. You just barged into my room to lecture me? Just answer me, I can't stand this.
My anger was not subsiding. I glared at him fiercely.
What's that look for? Don't what me? Explain properly.
In that moment, he shoved my shoulder hard.
I told you to shut up, old hag, get into a care facility. Don't you dare dictate to me.
I fell onto the floor. A strong pain shot through me, and I could not even stand up. Don't you act so high and mighty when you can't even walk properly. Who do you think lets you live in such a big house?
You're living in our house, remember your place. Don't interfere with me again.
He forcibly pushed me out of the room and the door slammed shut with a loud noise. Rachel, I'm sorry. I may have ruined your happiness. But I can't leave you here. I made up my mind.
What's up? It's quite late. I have something to talk about. I'm sorry to bother you when you have work tomorrow.
Rachel came home around 9 p.m. that night. Usually, we would just exchange words like good night, have a good rest, but today, I had her come to my room. And I told her everything that happened today. It was hard for me to tell the story, but it must have been even harder for Rachel herself. Rachel listened to my story in silence. I see. Thanks for telling me.
Rachel.
Having heard everything, Rachel managed a sorrowful smile and said nothing. Despite her brave front, it was clear that she was in deep pain, possibly on the verge of tears, and I couldn't stand idly by.
Rachel, this is not okay. You can't keep enduring this. I'll always be here to protect you. And not just me, your father too.
Slowly, her expression distorted, and a tear trickled down her cheek. The thought of anyone pushing my daughter to such a breaking point was absolutely unbearable. I decided then and there I would do anything to help Rachel, crying in my arms. The next day, Rachel went to work as usual. Despite everything that happened the day before, Michael still had the audacity to load me up with chores like grocery shopping. It was perfect. I had a plan. Every morning around 9, I would leave the house to run my errands. Given my slow pace, I always ended up returning sometime after noon. Just like every other day, I went out at the same time, pretending to run errands. Then, I quietly circled around to the back door and slipped back into the house, making sure not to make a sound. I discreetly set up my smartphone camera where it had a clear view of the front door, remote in hand to control the additional camera I had received from Rachel. And then, I waited. About an hour later, the doorbell rang. I hear the sound of footsteps descending the stairs. With a click, the front door swung open.
Welcome. Sorry about yesterday, must have surprised you.
The woman who was in the house yesterday flung herself into Michael's arms. This was it. In a frenzy, I started snapping pictures. Over and over again, I pressed the shutter. They shared a kiss and disappeared upstairs. I continued snapping pictures until they were out of sight. When the clock struck noon, Rachel was back home. I'm home. I had asked her to finish her work in the morning and come back home. Michael's mistress was still inside our house. I signaled to Rachel with my eyes and together we opened the door to the upstairs room.
What? Rachel? Hi, Michael. I finished work early today. I've told you to inform me beforehand if you're coming home early. Why today of all days?
The two in the room were visibly rattled by the arrival of Rachel. Michael was even more flustered than when I had appeared the day before. And he glared at me. It was you.
You spilled the beans, didn't you? After intruding into our home and causing such chaos. You're just a penniless retiree, leeching off your daughter.
He raised his voice and attempted to push me away. Rachel stepped in front of me. Stop it.
Out of my way. Are you seriously prioritizing your mother over your own husband? Well, aren't you prioritizing your mistress over your own wife? Just get out of my way. I want your mother out of our house now.
Our house. He still seemed to think the house was his.
I never told you, but the owner of this house is my mom. What? This land and house, they belong to my mom. She's the one paying all the taxes and expenses. But if you knew that, your pride would be hurt, wouldn't it? Besides, I saw no need to tell you, since you're always cooped up at home without a stable job.
Indeed, as Rachel pointed out, I owned all of the land in this area. My late husband had originally owned it, but I had inherited it. And as a wedding gift, I had given the house to my daughter. At the time, I thought they were still young and might struggle financially, so I arranged for all the taxes and expenses to be paid from my account.
But not only do you just stay cooped up at home, you're also bringing women I don't even know here. No, Rachel, wait!
Against Michael's too late attempt at an excuse, Rachel declared a divorce. She even added she already hired a lawyer.
So, I'll need you to leave by tomorrow. This is an eviction notice from the homeowner.
Michael was speechless, and the mistress scurried off.
What are you talking about, asking me to leave by tomorrow? Hey, Rachel, let's talk. If we talk, I'm sure you'll understand. You better listen to what the homeowner is saying.
Michael just crumpled right there, at a loss for words. In the end, the couple divorced. Abandoned by his mistress, disowned by his own parents, he had no one to turn to and reportedly took up live-in work somewhere. We sold the house where the couple had lived and returned to my old house. Now the two of us live together.
Hey Mom, do you think Dad would be mad at me? Why would your dad be mad at you? For having poor judgment in men. If that's the case, I'm equally guilty. If your dad were here, he might not have approved of your marriage. That might be true.
While making these jokes, we're spending peaceful days. One day, when Rachel leaves this house again, I am working harder at the physical therapy, so as not to cause Rachel any extra worries. I pray that happiness will come to Rachel. I pray that my legs will get better. I said a prayer to my husband in heaven. I felt as if the sky had shone a little.